So today I went to a Kingdom Hall and I told them that I was a disfellowshipped person.
That is so fascinating.
So for those of you who are not XJW, disfellowshipping is a very austere form of excommunication that the Jehovah's Witnesses have. So essentially, the disfellowshipping practice as it stands currently is if you either apostatize or commit a serious enough sin, which usually is pretty innocuous in the grand scheme of things, they will excommunicate you. So now the governing body, in trying to soften language around the disfellowshipping arrangement, has said, well, now it is appropriate to greet them with a warm welcome. You can say, hi, hello, how are ya? But you must not get into an extended conversation. No, no, no. The other exception is that you're allowed to talk to disfellowshipped people if it is for the express reason of asking them to come back to the Kingdom Hall or inviting them to a meeting.
That means we don't socialize with those who are removed from the congregation. However, that does not mean that a Christian could not invite a disfellowshipped person to attend a congregation meeting.
Yeah, my mom always did that. She always invited me. She stopped inviting me when she found out I'm a full-blown apostate.
But if it's not that, and it's not a life or death medical emergency, so that's the backdrop to all of this today. And I was very skeptical, and I needed to see this for myself. And I didn't just want to see it from somebody else's vantage point. I wanted to experience it myself. So I rolled up to the Kingdom Hall this morning. This was a different Kingdom Hall from either of the previous two that I've been to. I combed my hair, had my nice dress shirt on, I was ready to go. I walk through the door and I meet a guy in his mid-30s named Alex. And he welcomes me with a big warm smile and says, hey, welcome, brother. Yeah, I haven't seen you before. So I introduced myself, and the protocol, if you're disfellowshipped, is you're supposed to announce the fact that you're disfellowshipped. Almost like you're telling a lover that you have an STD. So I say, hey.
Yeah, absolutely, because people are embarrassed to speak to you if you're disfellowshipped. It's not just embarrassment, it's forbidden. You can get disfellowshipped for it.
Hey man, my name is Jared, and just full disclaimer, I'm a disfellowshipped person. Now, in hearing a lot of these XJW stories and in hearing a lot of disfellowshipping stories, I was really expecting kind of a cold, closed off, look of horror.
By the way, the algorithm is hitting me hard right now, completely ignoring me. So I'd appreciate if you watch to the end of the video. Having increased watch time as a percentage and a raw number is what pushes the video further. Also check out my books, owenmorgan.com. All right, back to the video. Actually, I'll tell you what happens with me, or what has happened with me in the past. You walk in, somebody greets you, and you say, oh my God, these loud trucks. I don't know what the fuck is going on out there. And you say, oh, I'm disfellowshipped. Like somebody offered you something and you are rejecting it because you don't need it. Like, oh, yeah, I'm lactose intolerant. No thanks for that milk. I'm lactose intolerant. And they say, oh, and they just retract it and then turn around and walk away. That's kind of what it's like. Say, oh, I'm disfellowshipped. And they just clam up, like not another word, not another glance. You're just a ghost to them now. It's bizarre.
And I didn't get that. Instead, I got, well, hey man, we're so grateful to have you. And I gotta be honest.
He might have been an elder. Elders are allowed to have extended conversation.
That it kind of took me by surprise because I was ready to be treated like a pariah. But to my shock and amazement, I wasn't. So I took my seat and had the normal, very uncomfortable Kingdom Hall experience. The music.
Yeah, elders are allowed to offer spiritual encouragement to disfellowshipped people, but not apostates. Normal members of the congregation are not allowed to talk to them at all.
Music is still bad. The Watchtower.
Well, like he mentioned earlier, I think they changed that policy, and they're changing it currently. But yeah,
they're still boring. The people are still incredibly nice, and there just wasn't a whole lot to write home about. For some reason in the Watchtower, the whole discussion today was all about courtship, which is probably only applicable to like 10% of the congregation. I thought it was silly. I just recommended to everyone that they should just read a copy of I Kissed Dating Goodbye. Hold on, I think I have a copy. Hold on.
This dude is really funny. I can't believe he's got such a small channel.
Let's go, baby. The Watchtower basically just copied and pasted this entire book. That sexy fedora youth pastor motherfucker. Fun fact, from the ages of 14 to 22, I didn't kiss a girl. Which is why women often report that my kisses now feel like the buttery tail of a freshly baked lobster.
Okay, that's good.
Anyway, so The only thing that was really of note about the sermon was that the circuit overseer gave both talks today. And I didn't
that's a big deal.
really know what a circuit overseer was, but he like has some, authority role over like several kingdom halls in the area. So I'm just gonna equate it to a bishop. I don't really know or care.
That's a fair comparison.
So he finishes his talk. He was very, well-spoken, very articulate. And then the mingling happens, the post-service shuffle. And the woman to my left introduces herself and says, "Hey, my name is Amy," or whatever. And I just wanted to say I was admiring your Bible. Fun fact, I like to pretend that I know how to read Greek. And so I flip through with like a interlinear. As an aside, I learned this recently. The New World Translation, which is the like official translation of the Jehovah's Witnesses, the most qualified person on that committee who translated the New World Translation was Fred Franz, the 4th president of the Watchtower Bible.
I didn't actually know Fred Franz was involved. That's surprising. We don't know who wrote it or translated. I mean, we don't have any clue because they didn't release the academic names of like any of the people that took part in this. And the reason that they didn't release their names, I suspect, in my personal opinion, is because I believe it was probably just a bunch of like Jehovah's Witness anointed people who claim to have the ear of God in a unique way to anybody else. And they don't even know the language. And they just kind of went through an interlinear version of the Bible and reinterpreted it the way that felt right. That's my guess, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong there.
Bible and Tract Society. You want to know how much formal Greek training Fred Franz had?
0 to my knowledge.
2 years.
Oh, okay.
2 years at the University of Cincinnati, which technically means that I have more Greek training than he did. That's kind of a big yikes, considering I barely remember the Greek alphabet. Thus saith the Lord, I am the Alpha and the Omicron. But anyway, I'm talking to this woman next to me, and we're having a little chit chat. And very early on, I say, "Also, just wanted to let you know I'm disfellowshipped." And she perked up and she was like, "Oh, well, we're so glad that you're here." And, we chit-chatted about my little interlinear Bible a little
It has changed since I've gone. I understand they loosened it just a little bit.
more, and I showed her
Like, if you're at the Kingdom Hall, they can talk to you, but not outside.
how to use it. And she was like, "Oh, that's so cool. Well, we hope you have a wonderful time and we hope to see you again." And it was, pleasant niceties, like maybe more pleasant than I was expecting. So after I said hi to the woman on my left, the elder comes down and, I'm a new face. So he introduces himself and says hi. And then we start chatting. And again, I very quickly let him know, like, "Hey, man, thanks so much for the warm welcome. Just wanted to let you know I'm a disfellowshipped person." And I think, he was maybe like a little surprised, but he wasn't like horrified. And we talked for a little bit and he was like, "Well, yeah, they recently updated some new policies. And yeah, if I could get your phone number, I'm happy to send you the new information." And I was like, "Yeah, I would
Elders can do that.
actually love that." And then his wife came by. And the fact that, in this very brief conversation, he didn't need to tell her that I was disfellowshipped. It was just a really quick exchange, but that seemed relevant. And we were talking about work and like, where we live. So we had a nice little back and forth. And then he was like, "Well, yeah, man, you're welcome back anytime. We hope to see you again." I was like, "Okay, interesting, cool." I get up to leave. I grab my handy dandy Watchtower magazine and I make for the door. At the door, I run into this guy, Alex, again, and had a little bit further of a conversation. Now, my conversation with Alex felt the most substantive. Now, he never asked why I was disfellowshipped. He never asked what
They can't. They should never, ever ask that.
the things leading up to it were. Basically, all I said was, yeah, I had heard that there were some new disfellowshipping guidelines, and I just wanted to come and see what they were. And
That makes sense. Yeah. It checks out that people would try to be more welcoming since the guidelines have been instituted.
he seemed almost excited to tell me, "Man, we're so grateful because now, the governing body has really been reflecting on the kindness and the mercy of Jehovah. And we feel that these new policies are more in alignment with that part of his character." And I did.
Wow, that is borderline disagreeing with the society. Almost. That's damn close.
I didn't really know how to press him on it. Just the conversation didn't really go the way that I was anticipating, and I was kind of caught off guard. I also was not there to like start a scene. So I asked him the question though, "Well, that's very interesting, and I'm happy to hear that, that things are moving in a better direction. But did the governing body make a mistake previously?"
Oh, shit. You are full apostate now. You are full on apostate. Oh, my God.
when the rules were more austere. And his response was something along the lines of, well, as we get closer and closer to these latter days.
Okay, the new light claim. As we get closer and closer to the end, Jehovah makes the light brighter and people understand more. So the answer really is yes, they were mistaken, but they're God's spokesman on earth. So no, not really. God just decided to turn up the megaphone that he's pointing into their ears. That's all fine and dandy, but that doesn't explain you making the wrong decision for 70 years. For 70 years, from 1961 to 1967, getting an organ transplant was acceptable. From 67 to 75, it was frowned upon heavily. From 75 to 1980, it was full on banned. Like, if you get an organ transplant, you're not going to make it into paradise with everybody else. You're going to die, and that's going to be the end of it. And your family will have to live in paradise without you. And that necessarily means they're going to forget you because there won't be unhappiness in the paradise. And then in 1980, they reversed that. That's not new light. That's not light getting brighter. That is you being wrong multiple times, unequivocally, beyond a shadow of a doubt, wrong. So that answer, that's actually not a surprise. I expected to hear that. That means that this dude has thought it through already. He thought about his answer most likely, and he gave the answer that it's okay because they were mistaken, or because they didn't have enough information at the time. It's just vile, just vile.
Days, the governing body is receiving more and more accurate understanding of Scripture. At about this point, the circuit overseer comes and makes an introduction.
Oh boy.
Again, I didn't really know who this guy was, but apparently I was very lucky to have caught him on.
Oh, yeah. He's the type of person that everybody wants to know, everybody wants to talk to. He's a big deal, for sure.
This particular Sunday. So we shake hands, we say hello, I tell him I'm disfellowshipped. So I ask him and this gentleman, Alex, and I say something to the effect of, I guess I'm still trying to wrap my head around who is welcome at a Kingdom Hall. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I say, well, I have some atheist friends. Would they be welcome to, come to a Kingdom Hall? And
oh boy. Yeah, they are welcome to come to a Kingdom Hall, yes. But the fact that you have atheist friends is questionable.
And there was a look of hesitation on the circuit overseer's face. And I was like, oh, no, not like one of these people who come to...
The thing is, you should already know as a disfellowshipped person what the answer is to this. And the fact that you're asking it implies bad faith. It tells the circuit overseer that he should be wary of what you say next because disfellowship people are untrustworthy by default. That's why he gave a weird look.
Disrupt the service, not one of these people, who grab the microphone and start yelling about the child sexual assault cases, which are very...
Don't say that to him. Don't say that.
Real. But just like a run-of-the-mill atheist who, maybe they're antagonistic towards the message, but if they were to come and be polite and to sit and listen and be attentive and then...
Anybody that's friends with a disfellowshipped person is not polite or good or attentive or nice.
Leave respectfully, would they be welcome? And the circuit overseer said, yes, absolutely, without any hesitation. So Alex and I talked a little bit more, and maybe he was breaking the rules a little bit because we started talking about travel, which seemed like a little bit of a detour from the strict guidelines of you can only say welcome and hello. But
I think it's okay to have normal conversation at a Kingdom Hall as long as you're not keep it to travel. Keep it small talk. Don't get into the details of why you were disfellowshipped or, what you're up to, your job or whatever. Don't get into detailed stuff. That's all.
But you should not have any extended conversations. So maybe he was doing a naughty, but it was really appreciated because he was cool and I enjoyed talking to him. And then he told me I was welcome back. So let me get this out of the way. I feel very conflicted right now, and I feel very weird because this is not at all the reaction that I was expecting. I was expecting to go in and be treated like a pariah. I was assuming that the governing body, even though they laid out these new principles,
Truthfully, this may have happened before the policy change. They like when I went to the meetings, they knew I was disfellowshipped and they knew me, and I grew up there. And no, I didn't have to tell anybody I was disfellowshipped. There was no like mistake. Oh, I didn't know, and then walk away. You got to feel awkward or any of that. They knew. And I went to the Kingdom Hall a few times as a disfellowship person, and people that I grew up with, a few of them, an older woman named Jean, walked up to me and spoke to me right then and there. Nobody else would look at me, but she walked up and she said, "You coming back to the meetings?" Like all excited, trying to, get me to talk to her and come back and everything else. So she was already living out that policy. And it's not like, congregations are small communities of people that all know each other. And the elders know Jean, and they know that she's not a bad person. She maybe just made a mistake, and they're just going to ignore it. They're just going to like move past it and understand that she had the best of intentions, and it's not a big deal. That's basically how they perceived the situation. She probably didn't face any negative consequences. Nobody even talked to her for it, I would bet. Because it doesn't happen often anyway. Some disfellowship person coming in, and she's not trying to hang out with disfellowship people or whatever. She's simply trying to encourage them to come back to the meetings. So even before that, even before the policy change, this might have been the reaction that you got anyway. But they will not hang out outside of the Kingdom Hall under any circumstances, period. And they won't have extended conversation of like getting into the weeds of what's going on in your life or whatever. That is also forbidden heavily. And you will be disfellowshipped if you hang out with disfellowshipped people outside of the Kingdom Hall. Even hanging out with them at the Kingdom Hall. Like if a disfellowship person comes every single week because they're trying to like get reinstated, for example, and you go hang out with them every single week at the Kingdom Hall to talk to them, you will be disfellowshipped for it. Eventually. They will talk to you. They'll tell you, don't do that anymore. This person is verboten, if you will, which is like forbidden. It's not allowed. So anyway, that's what would happen. So none of this really surprises me, what he's describing here. This is all kind of par for the course.
I figured that they were, still going to try to keep me at arm's length. And to my surprise, they didn't. And it was confusing because on the one hand, I've heard a lot of really horrifying XJW testimonies about what it's like to be disfellowshipped. And then here today, it was like, well, it's not pleasant, sure, but...
I had a best friend when I was from 16 to 18. It's because I got baptized. I didn't realize this until later, but I got baptized, and suddenly and seemingly out of nowhere, everybody wanted me to hang out with their kids. And I didn't realize that I was like, I didn't realize that my popularity was directly linked to the fact that I was baptized. But anyway, I had a best friend named Sean. The moment things started taking a turn religiously for me, Sean disappeared. Best friends for 2 years, and he disappeared. Anyway, the point is, I went to the Kingdom Hall as a disfellowship person, and I sat behind Sean's parents, and they were like my parents. Like, they, I went to their house, and I stayed the night, and they knew all the shit that I went through with my dad and everything. They loved me like I was their own kid. And I sat down behind them at the Kingdom Hall during the meeting. And after the meeting, they stood up and they both smiled at me. And Sean's dad shook my hand, didn't say a word. And then they both turned around and walked away. So sometimes your close connections will override that what do you call it, like that mandate to not speak to a disfellowship person because you cared so much. And sometimes you do it because you think it's going to bring them in. But at the end of the day, your goal is to bring them back into the religion. And if that isn't what is happening, if there's no chance of that, then your goal is to get as far away from them as humanly possible. And, to this day, Jean was the only one that spoke to me when I went to a Kingdom Hall last. And Sean's parents were the only ones that looked at me outside of Gene, of course. And going into a place with people that, like, when my parents were impoverished when I was 8, bought my school supplies for me, and being like fully shunned by all of them is an experience dark enough to really fuck your head up. And I, to this day, have nightmares about going to Kingdom Halls. In fact, I did like 2 nights ago, and it's sticking with me even today. So the experience that this dude had, what's his name? I keep forgetting his name. Heliocentric is the YouTuber. I don't know his name, but the experience that he's having here is built around the fact that people don't realize that he's disfellowshipped, so they don't have this automatic assumption that he's bad faith. And there's this new mandate that you should be welcoming to people no matter what. So those two things coupled together added up to not really having a negative experience as a disfellowshipped person. But disfellowshipped people who go to their home congregations definitely still feel this. They definitely still experience it because, you know, this is warm and welcoming to you, these short conversations. But these people, I used to have long conversations with the Kingdom Hall. I used to make plans with. I would walk up to them and we'd say, you know, I'd say, do you want to spend the night at my house, or can I spend the night at your house? We'll play some Super Nintendo or something for a while. You know, that's the conversation we'd have when they'd walk up. And now the conversation is, so good to see you again, shake your hand, and then walk away. There's a degree of coldness that comes with it now. And that's not an experience that this guy had to push through. You know, he obviously knows that shunning is a fundamental piece of Jehovah's Witness culture. And I don't believe that he like doubts that for a second, but Jehovah's Witnesses successfully, God, what's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of not pulled the wool over his eyes, but successfully put on the show that they wanted him to get. That's the term. They successfully put on the show they wanted outsiders to receive if they don't already know what their shunning thing is all about. It is literally trauma-inducing just to be shunned by your whole community like that. Human beings are not supposed to experience that kind of thing. They're not. We're social creatures. And being abandoned by your entire everything is like mentally damaging to a degree that I cannot articulate. Like I said, you know, he had a good time talking to people. They were super nice, and that's good. You know, that makes sense. But I haven't spoken to my friend Sean in 15 years. It's been 15 years. And, you know, when you have a friend that is that close to you, do everything together, knows your whole life, you know, and knows that like what your dad was like when you were growing up and how hard it was to like live with him and deal with it and everything. And he like steps in and tries to help. You know, when you get in a fight with your dad, or your dad is like, you know, violent one night or something, I could drive to his house and just stay the night. And his parents would like turn my mom away when she tried to get me. When you have that kind of a connection with somebody, losing them is like losing a wife or like a brother. Anyway, let's keep listening.
I mean, it doesn't seem that bad, but I knew that I was missing some key parts of the puzzle here. I knew that I wasn't seeing the whole picture. So I decided to go out of my way and talk to some people who have a little bit more of a comprehensive experience with being disfellowshipped.
What do people who have never been associated with the Jehovah's Witnesses need to know about disfellowshipping?
They need to know that it's a million times worse than what you think it is. Like, it's not just a quirky religious thing. They're like, really? Like, they shun you? Like, they don't talk to you at all? And yeah, like, no, like, I haven't heard from my own sister, who I was very close with, in years.
My parents and my siblings, like, they have pretty much no contact with me. And my mom made that super clear when I got disfellowshipped at first, that they were going to be loyal to Jehovah and not associate with their daughter.
That word removal makes sense too, because you're completely removed from.
You're showing videos from Jehovah's Witness footage right now. You are obligated to do these things, to ignore your kid's phone call. It's not like your pet died. That's bad enough. It's like your child died, or your brother literally died. In fact, in some ways, it's worse than death, because they might go out with you knowing that they loved you still. That's not the case here.
I sort of went through this long process of coming to grips with the fact that I was going to have to say goodbye to everybody in my life. I don't know if you've seen the episode of The Office where Michael leaves and it's his last day at the office and nobody else knows it, but he does. And so he goes around and has one last little moment of connection with everybody. That's what I did. But part of the difficulty that you go through is just wondering, but is my family actually going to do that? Maybe they love me more than these other people I'm seeing on the internet.
And they don't. They don't love you more. To be fair, that may not even be the right framing. I think that people can shun you and still love you more than anything. They can. I don't know that, it's a pretty clear indication that they love the religion more or Jehovah more or whatever, but it's possible for them to still love you very much and lose you. Well, and cut you off permanently. That's possible. But in the end, isn't it the same result? Does it matter if they love you more than whatever? Does it matter? They are talking to you just as much as my mom talks to me or any other disfellowship person talks to their active family members. So it doesn't matter how much they love you ultimately if they aren't willing to take that step to speak to you. And they're passing the message down now to not shun disfellowshipped people at meetings. But this is a fundamental piece of the culture that is going to take decades to change. This piece of the culture will take decades to change. That might be a mandate. It's not even a mandate, it's a suggestion. That might be a suggestion, but it's not. It's still not really helping anything. It's helping their public image for people on the outside. Like the dude that made this video. Of course, he knows better. Obviously, this guy does. But if any other random person goes to a Kingdom Hall and tries this just to see what happens, they're going to be blinded by it. They're going to fall for what Jehovah's Witnesses are doing to maintain their public image. Just like they did it to him, or they tried to do it to him. Now it doesn't really affect my life because I have built a life outside of them. But for the first 5 years of it, it destroyed everything. It came crashing down around me completely. Everything came crashing down around me. But, you can still think about this stuff again in detail and remember what was happening and remember how hard that shit was. Even today, even 15 years later, it's still back there. It's still sitting there in the back of your head. And it's probably not something that I'll ever be able to get away from because of Jehovah's Witnesses, because of what they did, because of who they are and the choices that they made and the governing body's choice to ruin my life. Something that isn't even in the Bible. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments.